thing that's most important for everybody, regardless of the topic, present it well. How good of an educator are you as a team? Is your educational material and its presentation strong? Are you giving a message? Have you backed up your message? And most importantly, I think probably of all, is there integrity? Is there honesty here?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Rhinoplasty podcast in this special season, which is all about World Rhinoplasty Week. And today's guest has been on the show before. He's one of the first people I ever interviewed. And we've got a really close relationship with the Society of Rhinoplasty Surgeons of South Africa, or SORSA, the guys who are organizing World Rhinoplasty Day. So him and Spencer Cochran came out for our second meeting back in 2018, if I remember correctly. Jeff Marcus, it is such a pleasure to be able to talk to you again. Thank you.
Thanks, Cam. Always great to see you and to chat.
So, guys, the reason, there's a lot of reasons I want to chat to Jeff today, but you might not realize it, but he is the current reigning Olympic rhinoplasty champion from 2020. And now Jeff has stepped into a very important role, and that's basically being the coordinator or the chief judge of the event. And it's awesome to see the excellence in the talk and the excellence of everything Jeff does that he's brought into the whole World Rhinoplasty for the judging side of things. So Jeff, yeah, man, so much has happened since 2020. How are things going in Duke? How are things going with you? Very interested to catch up again.
I can't even begin to tell you how many things have happened since then. Obviously, for everybody, the whole world has changed, and everybody's practices, I'm sure, have changed quite a bit. And same here for us, and within my institution, and for me personally, it was it doesn't even seem like that long ago that the last event took place, but since that time, I think that for me, being the chief of our division here at Duke, a lot of my time's been spent around building and growing, the academic mission of our group and growing our faculty, and at the same time, also continuing on with my practice, which I love, and I still have kind of a split in what I do. About 50% of what I do is pediatric and craniofacial, and the other 50% is rhinoplasty, which I think has probably gone up a good bit, since 2020. For, I guess, a variety of reasons. Popularity of the procedures has increased a lot, and also just some evolution in my practice. And for me, probably the biggest change, I think, I was telling you and Stuart Geldenhuys, after having been at Duke for 23 years, and have been the chief for 8 of it, and next year, I'll be taking a sabbatical, and I'll be going and living and working in Sydney, Australia for about 8 months at the Children's Hospital there, helping to fill in for some gaps that they have. So those are the big things going on in my life, and it's certainly occupied a good bit of time, that's for sure.
Wow, Jeff, now tell me, like in the little rhinoplasty world, for us it's a big world, but it's actually quite a small world in many ways. Over the last few years, also kind of coinciding with COVID, is this booming of preservation rhinoplasty. What has it been like on the other side of the pond? Because it seems to become, we in South Africa, so we're just south of Europe, it's been quite a European thing, even though originally so much of it's been in South America. But what's been happening in North America around preservation rhinoplasty?
I think that we're probably similar on this one, the Americans and the South Africans. I think that we spent a lot of time, for me, there was, I have to go, going back into like the, mid 2010s, roughly around, I don't know if it was like around 2015 or so. And I was spending a lot of time with the little academic research group with Yves Saban and Roland Daniel and Milos Kovacevic and a lot of, this and Olivier, and, we were hanging out, and Yves was talking about, this idea that he had been working on for some years and felt as though it really needed to be brought back. And the group really thought it was very brilliant. Right. And so I remember having those discussions back then, and this was, prior to even, just prior to even the first paper that Yves and Roland wrote. And then, of course, the popularity just, skyrocketed really from there. But having had a seat at around, the table when it was being discussed for those first times, I wasn't sure where to go with it. Actually, back then I didn't know for sure. Although Rollins said that he felt like this was absolutely 100% the future. Everything is going to go this direction. He felt so confident about that. And then, we've watched over the years where it's, it has increased in popularity, certainly throughout Europe, and then has spread. And I feel like as though it hits in places like South Africa and in the US, I think it hits small enclaves through champions. And those champions then disseminate some of that information. And then, and I think where we are right now is where at least in the US, I think that's what's occurring, is that we have some champions that are out talking about it, giving their honest experiences in most cases, I think, where they're saying, they're trying to be open about like pros and cons and limitations and things. And so that's helpful. And so I think it's still like, at least for the US, in this evolution stage where people are sort of, trying to gauge, what's going to be the future. And I do think that having like a very measured approach where you actually, let's really talk about, let's be honest here. Like, what's the good? What's the bad? Because not everything is a perfect solution. That's just not the way anything in the world works. So I think that's kind of where we are right now. And I think another thing that's happened though too is that conceptually, the ideas around preservation, which he originally meant just strictly, it was with regard to preservation of dorsal structures and especially, the continuity of the upper lateral cartilages along the dorsal aspect of the septum. That was the number one thing being preserved, was the integrity of that of the upper lats with the septum. That was what it meant. And then it turned on to go from there, and then it meant many other things. And so now it's going to end up getting redefined. What does it actually mean? And so I do think some other helpful things that have come from it, though, perhaps from misunderstanding maybe of the name, is that many other structures are being preserved, and people are saying this is preservation. So we're going to preserve this now, or this is important to preserve. And conceptually, as I said, it might come from some misunderstanding about what the original context was, but it's not a bad thing, because there actually are a lot of things that we have historically blasted through or destroyed or deconstructed that we really didn't need to. And so I think those are good things that will come from this too.
Yeah. So Jeff, slightly changing track now towards the World Rhinoplasty itself. So I think it's going to be quite a phenomenal thing to have 72 countries out preaching each other. Last time we had less than half as many. And what we've also done is you guys have put together an amazing package of absolutely the strict judging criteria. So for the listeners, I'm 99% sure every captain of those 72 teams is going to listen to this podcast because they want to hear what the chief judge has to say. But also I think it's going to give a bit of insight to the people who are going to take part in the event to understand what our passion of education is and why we feel there's this need to have almost like a competition for people to broadcast around the world how different a rhinoplasty, for example, in Japan will be compared to a rhinoplasty in Uruguay, for example. So, yeah, tell the listeners a bit more about your role and what's exciting you about it, etc.
So, I can continue my trend so far of being very long-winded in my answers. I will continue with that. So, I will just start by saying, I just want to commend you and Stuart and everyone for having done this in the first place, because this was an idea that you guys came up with, and it was brilliant, and it was very, very successful. And to have put it all together at the time that you did when it first started, even especially made it more challenging. And nobody really knew what to expect when it first happened. And I didn't know what to expect at all. At that time, we had, each country had a captain, and there were 5 or so, I can't remember, people that the captain could then choose, and each person had a short bit of time that they could present whatever their personal thing was. That was the format. And so, in that format, an individual, that was the way it was intended. An individual could, be crowned the champion, which, thankfully and completely unexpectedly, was me, which I had zero thought that would happen. But then it did. And then I find out that, the reward for having won is that I have to watch all of these presentations this time, and then be responsible for and have the pressure of trying to help pick, which one. It's like, great, thanks. But so the format's different, I'll say. So this time, as I understand, we have captains in countries and way more countries, and the captains have some freedom and creativity to create a presentation that incorporates the views of their participants into a single block. And there's a lot of freedom in there about what someone can do. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't want to limit their creativity, but also by having a panel of judges who editors of journals, these guys don't suffer fools gladly, So if you're going to do something creative, make sure that you're actually contributing to science.
Yeah. So that was the thing that also we came up with too, is that we want people to be creative. So I think that the thing is, for the captains and those who are the participants who might be listening, it's not about, doing lab research. It's not about doing bench research. It's not about any one particular thing specifically. You're not better because there's some science, because a lot of things actually in what we do are very clinical, but yet still can be very educational. So I think what people need to think about is that you're not advantaged by having a particular approach, topic, or sort of sentiment. But what does make a difference in looking at all the criteria, they're pretty clear, is that you can stick within those in the context of what your type of presentation is. The thing that's most important for everybody, regardless of the topic, present it well. How good of an educator are you as a team? Is your educational material and its presentation strong? Are you giving a message? Have you backed up your message? And most importantly, I think probably of all, is there integrity? Is there honesty here? Because it's not about, even in like a clinical presentation, which is completely perfect, a clinical presentation with some experience, like, a vast experience on a particular topic, sharing some pearls, that's maybe not research, but there can be serious value in there, especially if it's presented very well. And what it's not about, though, is who's got best results. Like if somebody yes. were trying to just show off and say, I just want to show the very, very best results that I have, and I'll just say that, this is average. This is what they always come out using my technique. That's not going to help me very much because, number one, I don't believe it. So what I really would like to see is if somebody has a strong technique, if it's clinical, with a long experience with it, let's see a range here. Show us something that really worked and show us when didn't it really work. Yes. Honesty, integrity are so important in this.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember studying when I wrote those facial plastics exams, one of the quotes they had is, it said, if a man has integrity, nothing else matters. And if a man does not have integrity, nothing else matters. And it's so true. Because the other thing that's kind of starting to raise its head a lot more is AI. And I'm so interested to know what your thoughts are on AI and plastic surgery and the influence it's going to start having, because in various ways, we've got to use it for our benefit, but it's also a dangerous tool. How has that started to get into the space of plastic surgery in your world?
Wow, that's a good, it's a good question. I think there are probably a couple places that we will see it. Number one is that, AI does a really good job of processing large amounts of data, especially visual and image related data. And our specialty is very image and visually related. And we take pictures and videos of so much and we catalog them. So I do think that there will be some opportunity for AI guidance that is, somewhat technical in nature, that may come from atlases or large scales of visual data. I think that there's probably something that could come from that. And as an aid, to decision making, for example, that could be helpful. Whether it's it could be in reconstructive surgery and free flap surgery and things, where you've taken information and you're trying to, we all work in this specialty where there's not one solution for a particular problem. So whether you're doing, a nasal reconstruction, or it could be, breast reconstruction, or whatever it might be, when you have a problem and there's 10 reasonable solutions, but you have to figure out which one of them might be the best solution for that particular patient. It sounds like an AI kind of a question. And what could go into that? You have, of course, you have image data, like I was mentioning. But the other thing that I really wonder about, and this is of the one of most personal interest to me right now that I'm trying to doing some work on, is in this preoperative preparation and optimization and the decision-making process, where you can take a large amount of information, in this case, maybe from, let's say, the patient's background, demographic, medical history, prior surgeries, comorbid conditions, all of their, obviously BMI and all those other things, their habits, smoking, and so forth, a litany of laboratory values that that one might choose to order preoperatively, or all of the tests that might be available in their electronic medical record, all of the things that existed. If you process that information, and then that can help you to mitigate risk in what you are going to do. Maybe first of all, help you choose a direction procedurally, or, from a, technical point of view, but also then how do you optimize them? So, there's a way I call it, I talk about like the usual suspect approach. So like in preoperative preparation, we usually take the usual suspect approach. Like, okay, well, what are the usual things that we need to look out for? Well, smoking, being fat, not exercising, or, what things are we normally, let's make sure we check of course we'll check their CBC and their platelets. We check the usual suspects. That is not personalized at all to a particular individual and their other comorbidities or other conditions, all the other things that might factor in. So again, long-winded answer, but I think that's personally where I believe the biggest advances will be for us.
Yeah. I love their long-winded answers because it's so interesting to just listen. So Jeff,
that's right. Everyone else tuned out, but you were listening.
No, I love it. I love it. How? So I'm very interested about your sabbatical, as it were, going to Sydney, in two kind of areas. The one is that it's amazing to be able to go and spend time when you kind of off in the completely other side of the world, but also how to get your balance right between doing like cosmetic rhinoplasty and working with these little kids who've been through such tough times. It's two kind of almost like different worlds, but you manage to work them together. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts around that.
I think there's I'm not the only one, obviously, who does that. I mean, I think there are a few. Travis is another one who does that. Tollefson. I've never had it any other way. So I've always had two worlds, and you're right. They're completely apart from one another. And when I'm living in one world, the people that I'm dealing with, on the society levels and all the various things there, they don't know anything about what I do in the rhinoplasty world, and sort of vice versa. Although the rhinoplasty people know me, honestly actually know me better. Most people in the rhinoplasty world know me well, and they kind of have some awareness because I've very much had this strong personal affinity, for the whole world of rhinoplasty surgeons. I love being around everybody. There's great friendships, and so, but yeah, they're very, very separate, and sometimes it is kind of hard to kind of separate them. But I've done it for so long that it's kind of natural, and I think in this case, for me, I'm at a point in my career where I just kind of would like to try something different, explore, think about next things, future directions, what other opportunities I might want to get into, and so the idea of taking some time, for me it was kind of necessary, to be honest with you. And when I started looking into it, you will not be surprised, but the very first thing I started looking into was what kind of opportunities are there in South Africa, and so I started poking around in South Africa, looking around to see who might need help, but everybody seemed pretty well covered. And coincidentally, I had some very good friends at the Sydney Children's Hospital who they found themselves in need of some help for a limited period of time, and worked out.
And that the whole family's going over.
Yep.
Wow, that's cool. That's really cool.
But we would have gone to South Africa in a heartbeat.
No, your journey to South Africa hasn't finished yet. There'll be times. Okay.
We'll be
Jeff,
back. We'll be back.
So 2 last questions for those listening. Who are the other judges who are part of this? And how does the process work? So there is the criteria that people have to submit, but then how does it work from that? Once the submissions of these pre-recordings have been submitted to you guys, what's the process from there?
Right. So the judges are primarily they're going to be journal editors and society leaders, and it's not a huge group, but I don't want to miss anybody, so I'll just leave it at that. But they're listed and published, and they're all absolute leaders who have established themselves with a track record of excellence over many, many years, perfect for this kind of thing, and also people who we know will be very objective. Like there will be no subjectivity in this. It'll be pretty straight run. And so when people do submit and the submissions are being collected, I think the deadline just came out. And I do want to be clear about that. I think that, the deadline was important because we have to start judging. There are a lot of these presentations. And so just so that we can get through them all, we have to start as soon as they all come in. And we're not going to be able to rejudge once we've already started. So we're going to basically take, all of the submissions will come in. We're going to distribute them among the judges. And then each judge will come up with their top, say it'll be 3 or 5 of the group that they're assigned. And then those are going to go into basically a final set where all of the judges will rewatch all of the finalists. So there will be, the finalist group will still be pretty big too, actually. But in the finalist groups, everybody, then each judge will then will rank according to those criteria. And it goes into basically a Qualtrics database. So it's actually just tabulated electronically. So humans don't really have a role. And then we get basically the output, which will be the average scoring for for all the presentations, which will create the final rank list.
Yeah. So guys, there you have it. Absolutely. We've got nothing to hide. Those are the rules. It's just like at the Olympics, and I'm so excited for it. If you haven't yet registered for World Rhinoplasty Day or World Rhinoplasty Week, please get onto it. You can be in person in South Africa, and then obviously there are all sorts of lucky draw prizes, etc. Otherwise, you can just do the online meeting. But I think it's going to be amazing. And I hope this has just given you a little insight as to the sacrifice that the judges are putting into this, because even though it's 24 hours of webinar, these things have to be watched a second time once they've through their first set. So these guys are already putting in a huge amount of it. They're doing it out of the love in their heart for rhinoplasty. No one's getting paid a thing. And Jeff, that's really amazing. I genuinely just want to say thank you.
You're welcome. It's all for you, actually. We love rhinoplasty, but it's all for you.
I met you in 2018. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's one of my dreams one day to come and visit you, so you can actually see what you guys do there.
Thanks, Cam.
Yeah. And Jeff, thank you very much, guys. For those of you who don't know, it's actually a nice, beautiful, sunny Sunday. Jeff has kindly gotten behind the desk to do this recording. So Jeff, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking a Sunday off, eh?
I still have my swim trunks on, but I put a shirt on for you.
Okay, thanks. Guys, make sure you come back to listen to the next episode. And Jeff, thank you again. And be blessed, eh? For those of you who are only listening to this on a podcast platform, please try and reach out and get onto YouTube, because on our YouTube channel, we've got some really cool clips where I interview the guests.